Hey everybody, Andy Nelson. So, how do you reserve a trademark that you are not yet using yet? Okay, so the situation is this: you've got great ideas about what your business is going to be. The plans are in the works. You know what you want your identity to be. That is, maybe the company name, the public-facing mark you're going to trade under, or marks, because you may have names, you may have logos, you may have a slogan or a tagline, you may have distinctive color combinations, you may have distinctive products even, who knows. But you're not using them yet. So, geez, how can you go forward making these plans and have some kind of comfort that along the way someone's not going to come in and snake what you're doing? Now, luckily, the Patent and Trademark Office allows a reservation procedure, and that is you can, in advance of you using trademarks in commerce, you can reserve them, so to speak. And that's called an intent to use application, which means if you have the bona fide intent to adopt one or more trademarks, you can apply for them, begin the application process, get a priority date over those that might come after you, such that when you do start using your marks in commerce, assuming you get by and get through the application process otherwise, you can feel comfortable that no one's going to snake you in the meantime, and that when you do finally go into commerce, your priority date gets backdated, and if someone does come along after you start the application process, you will have an opportunity to push them out of the way. So you take full advantage of the mark that you own, or marks plural, and you stand out in a crowded marketplace. That's why you adopt distinctive trademarks, so you can stand out in a crowded marketplace and ensure that people come to you and you alone for your products and services. So what's that process? It's similar if you've seen my other video on trademarks that are already in use. The process is similar. You apply through the Patent and Trademark Office. That is an electronic or digital or online filing. You can do paper, but I think still, but nobody's going to do that. You apply online. Once you fill out the application, the trademark gets assigned, or the application rather gets assigned to an examiner. That happens in about 3 months after the application is done. So you just sit and wait 3 or 4 months, and an examiner gets back to you, either saying that your application is going on to the next gate, so to speak, or there's some sort of issue with the application. They check to make sure that there's no defects in the application, there's no questions, no clarifications needed. They also make sure that your application is not going to conflict with an existing registration or a pending application that predates yours. That is, what they're looking for is to ensure that it would not, your application, if it went through to registration, would not create a likelihood of confusion as to source, sponsorship, or affiliation. That's what they're looking for. So you get by that. It then goes into what's called publication. So some weeks after it goes by the exam, it gets through the examiner. For 30 days, your mark is published, so to speak. So anybody who's a existing mark owner and thinks your application would cause injury because it would create that confusion, that consumer confusion or likely consumer confusion, they can object. It's an involved process, so not any Tom, Dick, and Harry can object. If someone's going to object, they've got to commit some resources to doing so. So it's not that easy. But assuming you get by publication, then at that point, the Trademark Office says, great, you've gotten through these 2 gates, the examiner and also publication. So now you're entitled to registration if you actually use your marks, because you can't just warehouse marks and not do anything with them. That's not really possible. So you got to eventually use it. So what you do at that point is, hopefully you're using it by then in commerce, and you submit at that point a specimen to the Trademark Office saying, here's how I'm using it in commerce. Look, there's the mark on my product or services, and it's in close proximity to the goods or the services described themselves, so consumers make that association. Oh yeah, that's proper trademark use or service mark use. So if you submit the appropriate specimen at that point, and you fill out some more digital or online paperwork saying that, yes, I'm in fact using it on these goods or services that I put in my application, then you then move on to registration some weeks later. So on average, if it's a pretty smooth application, we're talking about 7 to 9 months. It can be longer, can't really be shorter than 7 months, but it could be longer if there's some hiccups along the way. That is the basic process. If you have any questions about this video, shoot me a note, drop a comment below, And if somebody would benefit from the information in this video, please feel free to share it. Until next time, have a great one. Thanks. Bye-bye.